with some ability power. Early pink ward means that that river ward is deleted, and for the first time, Evil Genius is not playing very aggressive at the start. In games 1 and 2, they grouped up as 5, they sort of pushed an area of the map and got some vision down. This time round, with so much at risk, in either spot in the semi-finals or a spot in the summer promotion tournament, they're playing safe.
Yeah, why not? It is going to be a 2v1 in both lanes as well, and last time it didn't work out so well for Godbro. Crepo and Yellow Pete did a very good job at zoning him out in that one, and it was with Leona as well for Crepo, so we'll see whether he can do that again. Of course, Wicked on Rumble should be able to farm a little bit further away, but not so great. He still needs to get close for that Flame Splitter. He's going to be help with Froggen, and well, more to the point, Froggen's going to be helping him out to get those wolves.
Similar situation on the other side for Copenhagen Wolves. Bjergsen and Godbro, they are taking away the wolf camp, but interestingly, Svenskeren soloing up that Wraith camp. So a lot of experience being shared around the map there for both teams. Now in the bottom lane, Yellow Pete is sticking around with Snoopy on that red buff to drop it as quickly as possible, while Leona is getting some early levels. That's actually very important to note, because if Leona is in range of the CS alone, she's going to be able to hit level 2 earlier, which means the EQ combo is going to be a lot earlier than their enemies might expect.
Got down there early, picked up the first CS, and immediately zones out Godbro away from any of that CS. Fantastic job. Deficio going to do exactly the same, but look at this. Crepo, he's just keeping Godbro on that turret, just as he did in game 1.
And both of these top laners now, Wicked and Godbro, have the exact same CS they did at 5 minutes than what they did in game number 1. So we'll see if they can sustain and be alive a little bit longer. Wicked's Rumble, we've seen some great performances out of him this split already, and this is not going to be an unfamiliar situation to him. He's already used his wards, so he's got no additional vision, but when you're expecting him to be sitting under his turret, he's not going to be needing that vision. Unless that 3-minute 30 gank comes in.
Meanwhile, their mid lane, of course, the advantage that Bjergsen has is the fact that he can farm very long distances away from Zed. We immediately see Godbro getting locked up by Crepo. Does take a turret hit, though, as well as a couple of siege minions hitting him.
So well played there by Godbro to taunt Crepo, pull him those couple of extra steps up towards the turret range. He does end up going down to that or losing that. What we do see from him, and both him and Deficio actually, neither picking up the likes of that Rejuvenation Bead or Fairy Charm early, going straight for the sustain items and the regeneration items. Probably wanting to extend this laning phase a little bit. Svenskeren's hanging around that bottom lane, so if they go aggressive in the bottom lane, Nautilus can help out.
Well, last time we saw this, of course, both teams, Evil Geniuses and the Wolves, went aggressive towards the top and bottom lanes. They pushed the junglers round to shove the turrets down. This time it's going to be the opposite, and it looks like they're going to go defensive route and cover off their top laners, or solo laners as it were, because Godbro is of course down the bottom here. He has a giant creep wave to farm out, and Svenskeren's going to take some of that tax away from him. Or I'm not too sure if he's really helping there. He just stole everything.
This is something that Svenskeren does very, very well for his team. He responds to the pressure lanes in fantastic timing. He's almost like 100% aware of when his opponents are going to be pushing those lanes and trying to get aggressive on the towers, and he tends to be in the right place at the right time. And we do actually see damage pings at the bottom.
And that's going to be first blood as well. Svenskeren picks that up. Yellow Pete's also going to get taken down. His barrier's not going to be able to help him here. Does flash away from it just in time. Here comes Snoopy to try and turn it around. I don't think he's going to have enough to go aggressive though, and the Wolves pick up first blood.
First blood, and it went to Svenskeren, who's the playmaker, who's the aggression champion in the game. And right now, we do have a brief pause as teams are attempting to reconnect. I really hope we can get this matter resolved quickly.
Yep, so do I. That's for sure. So, first blood had gone down. We are 4 minutes 30 in. And that does, of course, mean that this game may well have a restart. But let's not jump to any conclusions just yet, because right now we do see the hands on heads, as it were, for the Copenhagen Wolves.
Somebody needs to quickly check the registry. Who's here and who's not? Is Crepo's brother in the building? Because if he is, we know the cause. We know
every time he's around,
when the moons and the planets align, Crepo and his brother get together. Internet does seem to have issues. You can see the attempting to reconnect is no longer on screen for the players, so we can only, or us, but we can only hope that the matter will get resolved shortly. The players are saying let's quickly test. And if we can get this sorted out, that will be very, very good.
It would be very, very good. The test has reconnected in there, and well, all the players are joining. There's no lag spikes that I can see on the screen. I'm going off the FPS and the marker on Wicked screen in just that little corner. I can see it's just one little yellow dot, so don't know, literally just stop that once, and that's about it.
So this is a very tense moment for both of these teams. It is, of course, the deciding game in the quarter-final matchup between Evil Geniuses and the Copenhagen Wolves. And this is now going to be a test for the Wolves. EG, more than I think any team anywhere, will know how to deal with these pauses. And the Wolves, this may be new for them.
Well, EG, you can see they've been through this so many times before. And I hate to say that because it is generally Evil Geniuses that are in this situation. And it does seem to just reoccur so many times for them. As it is, of course, you can see there is lag spikes, and the players, they're just going to refresh themselves, have a drink, take a break, and try and clear their minds away from this action. Remember, of course, this is $100,000 up for grabs, so all-important game. The admins are at standby just between these players, and Evil Geniuses seem to be taking this very well in their stride right now. They're sticking around. You can see they're just ready and waiting to go, so no discussions, of course, between the teams, because that is in the rules. Can't discuss the actual game when there is a pause like this. And it is the test, just connecting once back in there. E.g. Crepo also reconnected. You can see him just in the corner of the screen. And we are back underway.
So this is just a test at the moment. We'll see how the connection holds. If it's working, it'll be good. And the teams, they can't even talk about the weather because it's rubbish in Cologne today. It's pouring with rain outside.
It is absolutely pouring. And as it is, it does look like the game is underway. And it does seem that we are going to get going. Of course, that does also mean that the replay needs to be restarted, and the camera guy will be back underway. And we are finally going to get to go on your screens in just a moment. But you can see the Wolves. It is very tense, and you can catch a glimpse just of the test just simply pinning out there. And here we are back on your screen. So, 5 minutes gone in this game, and things are back underway.
So we haven't lost too much. The first blood did go down. As we were saying, it went to Svenskeren, who is the playmaker for the team. If he can get those early boots of mobility, which is something we see out of Nautilus's relatively, often, will of course allow him to gank and put more plays together. And that heavy crowd control on the bottom lane is what secured them that kill. Right now, it's a small gold advantage for the Wolves, and we'll see if they can maintain it.
Well, we will see that indeed, and it's the AD carries, though, that are gaining advantages on this one. You can see the test. He's got a big advantage over Yellow Pete. The fact that he did get pushed out in that bottom lane, had to be so defensive as they dived on towards him, does mean there's a 20 CS swing right now between Varus and Cogmore, the Tess and Yellow Pete.
And that number actually goes a little bit higher because you can see that Yellow Pete has picked up another Doran's Blade, trading pink wards for pink wards. Very cheeky indeed. But the fact that Yellow Pete has spent that money in another Doran's Blade, which doesn't get upgraded into anything, I mean, it could actually make that gold deficit a little bit further when you break it down. It all depends on what the Test decides to go back and spend, as he has not done that just yet.
Crepo is about to back off. He's probably going to get himself another pink ward to put down in that river after the pink ward fight had begun, and Godbro started it off there, both taking each other's down. Crepo has gone back, which means Yellow Pete needs to be pretty defensive here. He does have Svenskeren coming around the backside of him. He is going to see him coming. The question is, will he catch on? Svenskeren instead is going to turn his attention towards that mid lane, which will get spotted out by that ward in river.
So he's a little bit unsure as to which lane is more gankable. And we'll see if he can get down to the bottom in time. Yellow Pete's in trouble without flash and without barrier. He may actually be jumped on, but instead, Svenskeren's going to try sneak around the back. Now, there's no wards in this bottom lane, so you need to pay very careful attention to the positioning of Svenskeren, because wherever he goes to right now, he's going to be unseen, and that is incredibly, incredibly important. In terms of items, Bilgewater Cutlass has been picked up by the Test, so he does have that minute advantage over his direct opposite number, and similar item completed for Froggen.
So we see Froggen warding out, killing off the Wraiths. I guess he's warding it because he stood there. That's about as much of a ward he's going to get. This is something that he did do a lot of on multiple champions, and he's actually on Zed is one of the champions that he can do it on. Whether he can start invading the opposition Wraiths, I do not know. It does seem that Svenskeren is keeping them down on the respawn time. It
depends on how far ahead he gets over his opponent. If he's able to do it, it will work out well, but he needs to have an advantage in lane, and he cannot feel threatened by either Svenskeren or Bjergsen. And you can see Sven is hanging around this mid turret. Does have level 6 available, as does Bjergsen. If they decided to go on Froggen, they could catch him out. What you do see, though, is a CS advantage in favor of Froggen, thanks to those Wraith camps and to that early CSing power that Zed does have.
Yeah, the blue buff, of course, going to be given across. Froggen will be picking that up. And it does look like that Bjergsen will be taking it in a moment from Svenskeren as he trots on over there to pick it up. So both blue buffs secured by both teams. Very even game so far, just that 1,000 gold difference. Throws the giant ball on towards Nautilus. And the test continues to pressure on this turret. And this turret is almost gone.
So it is a relatively late turret. We've seen in the previous game one, rather, they traded them very, very early on. And they kept Godbro down and probably kept him down enough that he wasn't able to have a meaningful impact for a very long time in the engagement. Godbro is now baiting out some damage here from both Yellow Pete and from Krepo. And Svenskeren, he snuck up to the tower. And very, very unfortunately, we do actually have a pause here right now. So once again, some worried faces from the Tess and the rest of the Wolves.
How's your day going, they ask? My ears are hurting, says Deficio, so not too sure why his ears are hurting, whether one of his members of his team have been a little bit too loud, maybe, in the game. Certainly not my voice, of course.
No. The voice of a god, D-man. Nobody's ears
Voice
are
of an
harmed.
angel.
Unless you're screaming, hourglass! In which case it gets a bit scary.
Sonia's hourglass, I believe it was. I reached pitches only dogs can hear when I did that. I'm not too sure how I managed to quite get up that squeaky, but someone must have grabbed hold of me.
Were you casting with Jason?
Oh, the burns there. Actually, I do not know whether it was you or Jason.
It was actually me, but I'm trying to just palm it off to someone else. But yeah, we do have a pause again, guys. We're very sorry about this, but you know, it is a really, really important matchup, and unless these two teams have got stable connections and they're not spiking, you cannot expect them to play the game. If you can look very, very closely at Wicked Screen, you can see his latency counter. It's over 9,000 right now.
It's not anymore. It's gone down again, but that is what happens, and well, the players having to unfortunately battle through this. This is the downside of an internet game, and this is exactly what League of Legends is. Of course, millions of you around the world do play it, and thankfully, millions of you around the world do not anticipate or come against this exact problem, because it is, of course, on the tournament realm, which is an issue right now for the Wolves and Evil Geniuses. Remember, this is for 100,000. They're trying to sneak their way through and get in towards this one. The loser, though, they will be going through to the promotion series, which is next weekend, and they're going to be facing off against one of those amateur teams. And hopefully, maybe we could get the graphic up on your screen to show you exactly what will be happening next week. The summer promotion series. There's going to be 8 different amateur teams coming into that one. They're going to be facing off against the 4 LCS teams that are currently there. Currently, Dragonborns and the Giants are in that promotion series. Of course, the loser of this game will be moving in there as well. They're going to be placing off against Sinners Never Sleep, I believe it is, and Esports, no, Telelights, TCM Gaming.
And TCM Gaming. It's going to be a very, very important matchup. And like we said, out of the 12 teams that are in next week's summer promotion tournament, 4 of them make it into the summer split of the LCS. So you have a 33% chance of making it there if you're one of those 12 teams. And nobody really wants to be in that particular situation. So once again, you see all the players, they are reconnecting. Latency bars still seem very, very high. So I can only hope that this matter will get resolved very, very quickly.
Yeah, indeed. And the players, they seem in good spirits. They're chatting away between it. And they are just seeing when things will get underway. Of course, that promotion series, you know, it will be beginning, of course, next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Let's go through the other teams that are in that tournament, of course. Meet Your Makers being the one that everybody knows about. They're going to be up against Dexter Is Actually Evil. It is a fact, Dexter is evil. If you've watched all 7 seasons of it, you'll know that, yes, he is actually not a good man. Also, Team Alternate, they're going to be up against Wizards, the Spanish team. Wizards versus, I can't call them the German Team Alternate, because that is their technically make, but unfortunately they've got Spanish players in there as well, so it's not completely German. Also, Sinners Never Sleep versus TCM Gaming is something that I've talked about already. And Esports for Life versus a Nexus. That's definitely one of the matches I'm already looking forward to. So they are all going to be happening next Friday. And then, of course, the promotion series will be happening. Best of 5s, those promotion series. So that will be Dragonborns versus either MYM or Dexter. It will be Giants versus either Alternate or Wizards. It will be the loser of this game versus Sinners Never Sleep and TCM, and the loser of SKAA versus Esports for Life or a Nexus.
It's going to be a crazy, crazy weekend filled of games and 2 best-of-5s a day. It's going to be exciting, especially when you consider it's going to be 4 teams that we've been watching for the last 10 weeks against 4 teams that we will only have seen in a single best-of-3. So it's going to be refreshing. It's going to be new players, new champions, and probably new strategies as well.
I wouldn't go so far as to say we've only seen them in a single best-of-3. We may have only casted them, but of course there's a multitude of casters out there that have been covering these games.
Of recent weeks.
Of course, we saw MYM an alternate at Lille. That's how they got through. TCM, actually no, it was Sinners Never Sleep, and it was TCM. Are you sure they got through and Go for LOL? I'm pretty sure it was Sinners Never Sleep. Well, he seems to think it was TCM.
Sinners Never Sleep and Go for LOL. Esports for Life, Go for LOL. Ranked 5s was TCM Gaming.
I should have stayed with my thought, because that's how I thought it was happening. Jason's trying to throw me a misguided bone there, really, as it were. But keeping up his appearances, I guess. So we are going to cross to analysis desk while we do wait for this match to resolve itself. Evil Geniuses versus the Copenhagen Wolves. We are just around about 20 minutes into the game now. It's actually tell a lie. There's never that far. It's only 9 minutes.
9 minutes.
It felt like 20 minutes. It felt like 20. It's
9 minutes of gameplay, 10 minutes of pause.
So we're going to go over to Joe Miller and Jason Kaplan.
And that's how awesome this game is so far. It feels like we've been in for hours, but it's only 8 minutes and 45 seconds in there. So, Jason, let's go through what we've got up until now in the game.
Okay, well, so far we had only one kill really go down. In the first game, we saw the first what happened. I believe it was 19 minutes in, if it wasn't the last game. I don't know. It's been a pretty long series, a pretty exciting series so far. But relatively early, we had Gobber actually play pretty well in the beginning, just in terms of, you know, baiting Creppo. And we saw a nice taunt when Creppo eat into him to take him into the turret for a couple of hits. And then, of course, Svenskeren, he was on Svenskeren, I'm helping as he attacks that group of minutes under the turret, but was able to come back and help pick up a kill. So, in the end, I mean, Wolves are looking good. And if you look at Godbro's track record on Shen, he usually has an extremely tough time in lane. But he's ahead right now. He's up 8 CS. He has an assist. Like, he's underway into his build. And that kind of leads me to think that, you know, if we get 10 minutes, 15 minutes more into the game, he's going to be just unstoppable.
Well, and we saw, you know, if he lands the things that he needs to land, which is basically a good taunt, which we saw he did in game number 2. He did more than his fair share of landing taunts. Hitting 4 people at a time is just... That's a ridiculous amount. And that Stan United needs to be in the right place and at the right time. If you do that, you're doing your job as a Shen. That's really all you need to do when you get into those fights. Orianna is another champion. We talked about this in the picks that, you know, with Zed in there, we thought that maybe Kale would have been a better choice for that role. The fact is that Orianna as well is a champion that if she misses that shockwave, if she misses that ultimate, it's bad news. It's really bad news for the Wolves.
We can look back to the Against Authority versus Gambit game, and I believe it was week 9 where Schley was playing
with
Orianna.
The Maya waves.
With the Met waves. Yeah, it was... If you saw Schley hit an ultimate, you would see them pretty much destroy Gambit in those fights. But he would miss like 1 or 2, and because of that, Gambit was able to come back and win. And we look at this comp, and we're like, wow, they're lacking a lot of damage. And if Orianna misses, I mean, it's Bjergsen, so much like he won't. But if he misses an ultimate, there goes half their damage. And they're going to have a really tough time, you know, winning the fights. But, you know, Godbro, he does kind of make up for it. He does build Trinity Force usually, so it will help out a little bit. But with the just straight up damage that EG has, it's going to be really hard if you miss anything.
Yeah, I mean, you compared it to Schleyer, and we talked about Schleyer the week after he played that game, in terms of he played a fantastic Orianna, but he missed 1 ultimate at the end that cost him the game. And that's, you know, the thing about Orianna, that, yeah, you can hit 99% of your ultimates. If you fire off 100 ultimates in 1 game, it only takes 1 of them to miss. And it's it. That's it. The game's over. So, you know, that's something that Bjergsen's definitely going to be have to be on point with here. It's a very similar composition to what we saw in that last game. It's almost identical, of course, with just Orianna in there instead of Kassadin. But from EG's side of things, we've said it already, their backs are well and truly against the wall now. Getting that 1-0 lead, you could. You know, some people, I have been reading comments on Twitter, you know, hashtag LCS, by the way, if you want to get in touch. We are keeping our beady eyes on them as we go. A lot of people saying, I think EG might have underestimated the Wolves and their lineup a little bit in that second game. Not sure if that was really the case, but the problem is, they definitely can't afford to do that right now. They need to keep their heads high and play their game and not get too affected by the whole, you know, 1-1 scoreline.
And we heard him talk in the videos about, you know, there's nothing in our minds of us ever thinking we're dropping out of LCS, but it could very well come true here. I mean, they'll have to requalify, but have to prove themselves in the promotion tournament if they do lose this game. And it's just, and to me, it's ridiculous just thinking that one of these 4 teams could be out of LCS, or one or more could be out of LCS next season. Like we saw them, grow up. Grow up. We saw them develop over the entire LCS.
Sounds so cute. We've seen them grow from just wee pups.
Well, I mean, look at there you go, perfect. The Wolves. Look at them in the first couple of weeks. They 0-9. They did terrible. But then you saw Bjergsen come into the team. You saw them develop. They just became a really outstanding team that could take on the best. And we've seen a lot of teams do that as well. Against Authority, when DU came to the team, they really stepped up. A lot of teams are showing themselves that if they have the time, if they have the ability to focus on League of Legends only, they can be a top team in Europe.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm almost positive that we are going to see a team that was in LCS this season not be there. Of course, it could be the other way around. Those 4 teams that were here this season could end up being all there again. We could have an exact repeat of what we've had in this LCS, which is not a bad thing in a way. Although I'm really looking forward to see how these amateur teams actually come through and how they look when we get to next week's promotion series games.
That's a really good point, because we have to look at it like this. Meech Makers and TCM and Alternate all played in the qualifiers originally for the spring split.
Yeah.
They all unfortunately didn't get through. But during the entirety of LCS, they have this opportunity to look at every single game these teams have played and get this really good kind of a track record or a plan for them of what they want to do. However, you have Meech Makers, Alternate, I believe there's even Esports for Life, who've been practicing. Like, they've actually been scrim buddies with some of these teams who didn't want to show their strategy, so they have a little bit more of an advantage as well. But there's just all this knowledge that they have to work off of, and I don't know if it goes the same way back from the LCS teams to the amateur teams.
Yeah, I'm interested in that whole swing of things as well. We can have a look, actually, at next week's promotion tournament, because I know a lot of you guys, of course, are interested in that one. It's still a long way to qualify. It's definitely not an easy path. I mean, if you look at the top there, Meet Your Makers versus Dexter is actually evil. That'll be a best of 3. The challenger game on the left-hand side there is a best of 3. Then you've got Alternate versus Wizards, Sinners Never Sleep versus TCM, and Samurais in Jeans, which is an amazing name. I love it. Against the Nexus. Now, you're not in when you win that game. Then you move through into the best of 5 promotion game. The winner of MYM and Dexter is actually Evil versus Dragonborns. That could be really interesting if Dexter is actually Evil. Get through to that one, because Dexter played, of course, this season for the Dragonborns. In the other game, it'll be the Giants versus either Alternate or Wizards. That could end up being an all-Spanish affair if the Wizards manage to come through that one. Then you've got the loser of this game, which we're, of course, in right now, EG versus Copenhagen Wolves, taking on the winner of Sinners Never Sleep and TCM. And then finally, SK and AAA against Samurais in Jeans or a Nexus. So there's some amazing games next week. There's a lot of games next week, I have to say. We've been doing physical preparation with our voices. Me and Demon have been singing together to make sure we're prepared for next week's promotion, because that is 4 best of 3s and 4 best of 5s in one weekend. If we go down to the final games, I think me and Demon could be stretched away by the end of the day.
I'm actually curious, what songs were you practicing with, Joe?
That's a secret.
That's the only thing I was thinking
All
of.
I can tell you is they were very manly, so don't worry about that one. Maybe. Possibly.
Well, you mentioned a Nexus in there, and I forgot about them. They actually did participate in the qualifiers as well back in the spring split. But,
yes,
we had the honor of casting them back at Intel Stream Masters Singapore, and, they had a really nice lineup. They changed up a little bit. We saw Overpower, which I want to single him out specifically just because we saw some really crazy things out of him. Back in EPS, he would run Fiddlesticks middle with GP10
I think we can
runes.
talk about their performance in Brazil, right? Because that's where they were actually the Nexus that we see here. I believe it's actually the same whole 5 as well. Maybe
but they have swapped roles.
Yeah, they swapped a little bit from that one. They are a very promising team. There's no doubt about that one. But one thing that you always have to take into consideration is experience. They're going to be playing here in Cologne on the stage in front of our very, I think we can say concentrated but very vocal crowd. The guys here in Cologne, they're 2 walls away from us here, and we can hear the buzz when things are going down there. So, stage fright is it's a real thing, of course. So it'd be interesting to see how these teams come into that one, knowing that they've got a chance here to be earning money to professionally play League of Legends in the LCS.
And the thing is, you had a lot of these teams stick together after they didn't qualify in the spring split.
Yeah.
And they've been practicing nonstop for these 10 weeks now to get into this. So we're going to see teams that we never really expected rise up and potentially beat, some of the best we have here in Europe and qualify for their spot. And I'm really curious to see how well they do. I mean, Meet Your Makers back in the spring qualifiers, they in my opinion, kind of choked a little bit. I mean, they destroyed their group, but then they lost in their next best of 3, and they didn't seem to look good at all. It seems like they have a little bit of problems when it comes to that, but we know them as a phenomenal team, like back in the past, and that just shows you like the pressure that you're under when you're actually playing here in the studios or you're playing at an event, that it can change your entire gameplay. Like, you could be amazing offline, but when it comes to online, the crowd screaming at you, the split-second decisions you have to make can really throw you off.
Yeah, we're just to give you a quick update on what's going on here. The players still trying to get themselves connected into the game. Of course, we want to make sure that everything's running stability. That's not a word. Stably. Is that a word? I'm going to go with it anyway. Everything's stable. That's where I'm trying to go with that one. You know, because I speak German, sometimes I miss English words, which is really weird for a guy who was born and bred in the north of England. We don't speak real English up there, by the way, just to say that. But yeah, we want to make sure that everything is running smooth, that everything's perfect, because obviously we don't want to be getting into any more pauses and things like that. Well,
one thing we can kind of maybe touch on is that after this, we have the North America qualifiers.
Yes, we do.
Which should be really interesting to see what's going to happen here. I mean, you have Dignitas versus Good Game University, which will be the first actual set we're going to see that day. I'm trying to pull it up because I honestly cannot remember off the top of my head who the next one will be, but I'm going to get it in a second. I swear.
I'm going to
get there.
Second. Honestly, I've been preparing a lot for today. So, and obviously...
CLG versus Vulcan, there we go.
CLG versus Vulcan, of course.
Sorry.
What we usually, you know, get the pleasure to watch the North American stuff before we start with the European LCS. But this weekend is pretty much an all LCS weekend. Like, you can wake up in the morning and go to bed pretty much in the morning as well if you're here in Europe and watch the European stuff, then straight through into the North American stuff. You definitely don't want to be missing out because, you know, playing for money, for their jobs here, to be honest.
I can't imagine how many people are at home just in their bed, you know, with their laptop or, you know, the game on their TV with all their, like, snacks around them, like chips, soda, all that stuff, just like, I'm not going to leave my bed today. Maybe for the bathroom, but that's it. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to watch LCS all day.
One thing that I'd love to see from you guys here before we get started into our next game, using that hashtag LCS and @LOL Esports, send us a picture on Twitter of your setup and how you're watching the LCS this weekend for Europe and North America. We're going to be taking a quick break here while we try and get everything fixed up, but when we come back, hopefully we'll have EG versus Copenhagen Wolves, third map, coming your way.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, and we are not ready to go just yet. Evil Geniuses versus Wolves will be going underway as soon as stability has been gained, I think is the word that Joe was looking for earlier on.
Things need to be more stable.
Things need to be a little bit more stable. But first of all, there's actually a pretty serious note here. So it's we wanted to really bring the fans up to date on what's happening Against All Authority versus SK Gaming match. Of course, you may realize that was due to start at 3 o'clock. You may have seen Redbeard's posting. Unfortunately, Against All Authority was disqualified from the match today because they were unable to field a roster of eligible players. Earlier in the week, one of the players had a family emergency and had to leave Cologne, but unfortunately, none of the 3 eligible subs was able to be available for today. Both the teams and Riot, they've worked very hard to find a solution, but in the end, it was not meant to be. Against All Authorities will still be placed in next week's summer promotion tournament and fighting for their place in the LCS. Thanks to all the fans for sticking with us all day long. But of course, that does mean that SK Gaming do go through to face Gambit. So that's one semi-final already decided there. And really, we're waiting to see who the other semi-final is. So let's try and maybe update. Hopefully, I don't know whether we've got the graphic to maybe show you that or not. Maybe not.
Maybe not. But what it does mean, SK Gaming, they are guaranteed into the summer split. They are guaranteed a top 4 in the spring LCS. And it puts a dampener on the fact that
their job is secure.
Correct. They are secured for the next half of the year. And, you know, it was a matchup that they were favored to win anyway, if I can put it that way. And Against All Authority, they do have a full week to try and rectify their roster issues and come back into the summer promotion tournament and try and get their hopes of being in the LCS back.
So, unfortunately, we do have a server issue right now.
Yes, that is the problem.
Because everyone at home may well have realized there's not just the tournament server that's down. There's a US down as well, which is obviously what the problem is. So before you jump to any conclusions, that is the current issue right now. And when there's a server farm down, it's a bit of a problem for everyone.
Yeah, we're trying to work through it as best as we can. The game is still paused on the tournament realm. It shouldn't go anywhere for a prolonged period of time. So hopefully, if we can get the stability back up or the stably servers running again, we will be back into this quarterfinal match. And, you know, it's a bit of a tough day, especially after hearing the news about AAA and SK. But at the very least, hopefully, we can get this running again soon.
Well, let's look at overall how this season has been for the LCS. From our point of view, I think it's safe to say we can talk about it from our point of view, and also maybe the North American point of view as well, because I've been up to date with that. So, I mean, first of all, the American point of view, Jason mentioned it earlier on, the fact that Dignitas are there in third. You know, they were perceived as being the top team. They're going to be playing later on against GGU. That's going to be, I believe, the 12 o'clock match, or 12 o'clock midnight, whatever you'd like to call it, tonight here in Central European time. And that is about 4 hours from now. So that's going to be happening.
Haven't used the watch.
Hopefully, we're going to be finished by then.
Hasn't used the watch once in 11 weeks and twice in one cast.
I know.
You've got the wrist motion in.
I need to know what's going on in the world. And I've actually got the LA time, New York. I know what's going on everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. You guys in LA, it's 10 a.m. for you, so thanks for tuning in this morning. But obviously, Dignitas versus GGU, definitely a game that a lot of people, you know, if you'd have asked them 2 weeks ago, they would have said, Dignitas easy.
Will win.
But GGU, they've been on an absolute tear lately.
And on the other side of the coin, Dignitas have been underperforming. In week 9, they had, it was DJ Lambo in the jungle, and without Crumbs being there, he's their shot caller. There was the feature that went up on lolesports.com about Dignitas and about their difficulties that they've been facing of late. And if they haven't been able to bounce back from Super Week, which went, let's be honest, abysmal for them, they may be in trouble here in the playoffs.
Well, the problem was that Crumbs was the shot caller.
Yep.
So, you know, you take that shot caller away, suddenly they have problems, and GGU themselves being pushed into the position of having their support stolen away from them, go and pull a rabbit out of the hat and absolutely perform brilliantly. And we've seen it in a number of times. You know, you have that support player change. It was the same. You came in for Against All Authority. They played absolutely fantastic. But they're going to be in that LCS series. On the other side of the coin, Vulcan versus Counter Logic Gaming. That's actually a game that, I fear for CLG in that game, honestly, because Vulcan have looked so good lately.
Yeah, there's nothing